My name is kind of hard to pronounce. I go by Joe, and that makes everyone's lives easier. Our company is CrewAI, and what we do is a horizontal platform for building all sorts of AI agent use cases. So some of these companies use it to build, integrate, scale, manage, and optimize any sort of use case that you can think of. It's funny because I was coming out of an acquisition where the company that I was working with before for 5 years just got acquired by HubSpot. And I was seeing all these things with AI happening, right? And I was trying to build agents myself. And I was struggling with it because back then there was not that many options, right? I built the first group of agents and they worked amazingly. And I was like, I want to build more agents. Like, I want to automate my life away. And that's kind of like how I got into a thinking mode of like, all right, I don't want to replicate the same things over and over. So how do I create a system? How do I create a tech that allows me to reuse as much of this as I can? And that's kind of like how CrewAI can like start to take form. And then from that point on, basically companies start calling us and start using us and saying like, hey, can you help us? We started with an open source framework. So it was very geared toward engineers, technical people building agents. But then as we start to have customers reaching out and talking about, hey, we're using your open source and you want to take it to production, we start to get a better grip on what is this last mile. And this last mile is way more than a mile. There's a lot going on in there. So what we decided to do was like, all right, let's build a software that allows to bridge that gap so that people can not only build in here, but also optimize and deploy and feel like they're empowered to actually move super fast on this stack. So basically CrewAI is this platform that allows people to manage all their agents. That would be the TLDR. And what we have been focusing is a lot on what people would call orchestration. So a lot of the building and running these agents millions times over. Nowadays, we're running around 450 million agents a month, what is insane if you ask me. If there's one thing that's very clear to me is that the genie is not getting back in the bottle. What I mean by that is there's not going to be a world where people are not going to use AI agents, right? That's it. If anything, people are going to use it more and more. So now it's a matter of a race to how we lower the friction to do these agents, to bring them into our day-to-day lives, right? And lowering the friction here means a few different things. It means it needs to be extremely easy to use so anyone can do it. So that's one aspect where, yes, technical people can build agents now, but like, can anyone in an organization do it and how that impacts that work? Then the second piece is like these agents need to be trustworthy. And what I mean by that is they need to give you reliable, repeatable outcomes. So it's not only like, oh, they work here on an airtight environment, but it doesn't matter if I run this 1 or 100,000 or 1,000,000 times, it always gives me, even if different, answers that I agree, answers that are reliable, and answers that I'm fine with using. The final thing is the idea of scale, and scale is not necessarily running 1,000,000 agents. I'm not talking about that. It's more about how you don't build the same agents twice. How you're building the build blocks that you can apply across your entire company, right? How you build something that you got the ability to manage and to control. So I think those are some of the hot topics that I'm seeing out there. And I think if we unlock that, the potential is huge. Like honestly, if you think about that, it's gonna change the way that the workforce exists in today's market. So the biggest opportunity for these enterprises now has been on efficiency gains. That's it. So we're seeing a lot of these companies looking into their back office processes where they spend millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars, in order to do all sorts of work that can now be automated. Some of these processes get 94% efficiency gains, meaning how many hours they're spending before and how many hours they're spending now. Now, if you look a little bit in the future, there's definitely a few companies, even enterprises, and they're now actually starting to move into front-facing use cases, going to the users. And that is very interesting. I think that's going to be a fast follow because interfacing with their users and their customers is always something they're a little more careful about, as they should, right? So they really want to make sure that they put it to work inside first and eventually start going outside of that. But I think you're going to start to see more and more companies as they get successful with this transition into that. AI agents will transform the industry, as we know, and that's very clear to me. Like the way that we work is gonna change drastically. There's gonna be different companies taking different approaches. For certain companies, allow them to try entire new things, not having to invest that much money, and that will open up a lot of opportunities. For other companies, they're gonna try to cut costs, or at least do more with the same that they have, and that's gonna be another approach. But one thing is for sure, this is gonna happen. So my advice is just, as an individual, get familiar with agents, get familiar with AI, learn how to use them in your favor. You're gonna be making yourself a favor in the future.